So welcome to Baking for One. So we all know that when you go to bake, you end up sometimes with a lot. Are
There
you
we
having
go.
trouble there, Leah?
Yeah, I couldn't get you to just be you. But I
Okay.
got you.
Okay. And so someone had recommended this idea to Shirley to do a class on small batch baking, basically. And since Kim and I are more the cooks at the library, I got handed this class. And then many of you were signed up for it when we were going to have it in July. And unfortunately, my mom broke the hinge on our oven door. And so the week of the class, we did not have a functioning oven, which is why this class got postponed. So tonight we are going to do 3 recipes. We're going to make M&M brownies, which serve 2 to 3 people, depending on how big you would like your brownie. We're going to make a small batch of chocolate chip cookies that only makes 1 dozen cookies. And then we are going to make a snickerdoodle mug cake in the microwave, which serves 1. And then if you're on the email, I had also sent to you a bonus recipe for a chocolate cake in a mug, which is so good that so I had to share it, but we are not going to make it tonight. So we're going to start with the brownies because they take the longest to bake. And so I'm actually going to switch my camera over so you can watch me mix. There you go. Okay, so we're going to do small batch brownies. So we start, and it's a small batch because we're going to do it in a loaf pan. And I've lined it with parchment. And you could do wax paper if you prefer to do wax paper. And then I'm just going to grease it with a little baking spray here so that it comes out. And you want to leave it with the little hangovers because this will help you to just pull them right out of the pan when they're cooked. One of the things you can do, we're going to do M&Ms on the top of these brownies, but you can really do whatever you would like. If you like nuts, if you like coconut, if you like a different kind of candy, do whatever you would like, or all of the above. So there's the pan. So I'm going to take a small bowl and I'm going to mix together the sugar and the baking powder. And so this is just a 1/2 cup of sugar plus 1 extra tablespoon. I'm just gonna 1/2 cup. And I am not that kind of a baker that weighs their measurements. Good for you if you are. I kind of more of a scoop. I try to be a little more precise, at least try to level things off. I know weighing is supposed to make everything way more precise. So that was the granulated sugar. And then now we're going to add 1/4 cup and 2 tablespoons of cocoa powder. And this is the unsweetened cocoa powder, the baking powder. And this stuff seems to fly everywhere. So 1/4 cup, just going to dump it right in. And then 2 extra tablespoons. All right, we're just gonna mix that together. Okay, and then now we are going, so then we had 4 tablespoons of butter that was melted. I've already melted it to save us time. And so I'm just gonna add this in. And then we're just gonna stir this all together. And I already preheated my oven. I turned it on before the class started. So it's good to go at 325 degrees. Now this batter is gonna get nice and sticky and thick, which in my opinion just makes really nice fudgy brownies. So, okay. Still got a little sand, kind of like a little sand on the bottom. So I'm just mixing up a little bit more and clean that off a little. All right, so now we are going to add the salt and the vanilla. And so it's 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And every good dessert needs a little bit of salt to offset it. So just 1/4 teaspoon. And then 1/2 teaspoon vanilla. I would also say here, if you like other extract flavors, if you like hazelnut, if you like caramel, I mean, the pepper, you could do peppermint extract. This would be the time you could switch that out for a different flavor if you like as well. So then we're just going to stir this for about a minute because we want to make sure that that butter is not hot. Because we're about to add the egg and I don't want to cook my egg. Anyone ever done that? Put your egg in something too hot and it's no fun. So the butter was partially cool. Yeah, we're cooled down. So I always crack my eggs into another container because I'm notorious for cracking them horribly like this and getting shells. So I always do that. All right, so we're gonna add the egg right in. Make sure this is all moist and incorporated. I like this recipe too, because aside from the butter, which has to be melted in a separate bowl, it's a 1 bowl preparation. All right, that's pretty well mixed. Now we're gonna add the flour. And so we need 1/4 cup flour. Oh, and I'm gonna grab a clean, my other 1/4 cup's covered in cocoa powder. I'm gonna grab a clean one. There we go. So, right in. And then this is where it's gonna get nice and sticky and get all that flour incorporated. Hello, Jean. Glad you could make it. All right. I don't see any more white, so it's just nice and thick and fudgy. So we're gonna take and we're just gonna scrape this out. And then we'll kind of have to pat it down and spread it out a little across the bottom. Get every little chunk here. All right, so it doesn't look like a whole lot. We'll just kind of spread it out. Honestly, I think this is the hardest part. It's so sticky.
My hardest part is always cleaning up the cupboard after I get done pouring flour and sugar on it.
That's true, because there's often flour and other things on the floor. All right. As out as we're gonna get here. All right, so then we're gonna take our 1/4 cup of M&Ms. Also, you could just buy a single serving bag of M&Ms, which is roughly the same amount, and just kind of spread them as liberally or not that you like. And then this is gonna go in the oven. I got a little little batter on me here. This is going to go in the oven for 25 minutes until this is what it looks like, until toothpick comes out clean and the top is shiny and it's kind of starting to crack like how brownies do. So we'll get this in. And I'm going to set the timer. Okay. So there's that. So now we just wait. And while we wait, we'll move on to the next two recipes. So the next one we're going to do is the Snickerdoodle mug cake. And this is real easy too. So you need a roughly a 14-ounce mug, a microwave safe mug. So mine's a little bit bigger than that. I kind of like big mugs. A 12-ounce mug you would probably be okay with. Don't do smaller than a 12-ounce mug. Otherwise, you're likely to have cake coming out the tap and overflowing. It needs a little bit of room to puff up. So this is a Snickerdoodle cake. So it is going to be obviously cinnamon sugar. It's going to be the main. So I'm going to bring all my other ingredients over here. So in a small bowl, we're going to mix the cinnamon and the sugar first, which is for the topping. And so it's just a tablespoon of sugar. Big bag here, just a tablespoon of sugar and a quarter of a teaspoon cinnamon. Now, if you like it more cinnamony, then you can add more cinnamon. And then I'm just gonna mix that together. Okay. So, and then the great thing is this is going to be assembled in the mug. So we're going to take, oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. It's not. I lied. I discovered that it's easier to not do it in the mug. I did it in the mug the first time and I found it's easier to not do it in the mug. So flour, just a quarter cup of flour and with 2 extra tablespoons. So get my flour over here. The nice thing with these single servings too is they'll use up some of the last when you're getting down low on some of your pantry staples. All right, and then granulated sugar, which is just 2 tablespoons. And then baking powder, because we do need it to rise a little bit. So it's just a quarter of a teaspoon baking powder. And then a quarter of a teaspoon cinnamon to actually go into here as well. And then we're gonna mix this together. And then now comes the liquid ingredients. So this also had 2 tablespoons of butter melted, which I've already melted. And it's better if you do that a couple minutes ahead of time so it can cool down a little. And then we've got a quarter of a cup milk, which if you will let it come to room temperature or closer to room temperature than right out of the fridge, it will incorporate better. And then of course we're gonna add vanilla. So I'm gonna start with the vanilla, which is just a half a teaspoon. We're just gonna add it right in. And then we're gonna add in the butter. And then we're gonna add in the milk. And so I'm just gonna mix this all together. And I don't know if you've seen in the grocery stores, they actually sell these mug cake mixes now, where you just like dump the packet into your mug and mix it with milk and bake it in the microwave. They're awful. They're really, I tried a couple of them and they were just awful. And when I realized how easy it is to just make one at home, as long as you have the ingredients. Obviously, if you don't have the ingredients. All right, so this is pretty, there's a few little lumps in here, but I think we'll be okay. So then what we're going to do is we're going to layer the batter and the cinnamon sugar that we mixed earlier into the mug. So we're going to do about 3 tablespoons of batter into the bottom. And this does not have to be super precise. And then we're going to do about a teaspoon of the cinnamon sugar and just kind of lay it on top there. This way you get cinnamon sugar throughout all the layers. And then we're going to do two more tablespoons of batter and try to cover it. And then we're just going to do 1 teaspoon of cinnamon sugar. Oops, that's the wrong measurement. And then we're gonna do the rest of the batter and then the rest of this. So it's basically in 3 layers. You could do it in 2 layers if you don't wanna. It worked this way. So, but it would work if you just did half and then put half the batter, half the cinnamon sugar, and then the rest of the batter. All right. All right, so we're gonna just put the rest of the cinnamon sugar right on top. All right, so here we go. So then this goes in the microwave for 1 minute, and then we're gonna check the cake. So. And I recommend you check the cake after a minute because everyone's microwave is different. And so if your microwave runs a little hotter, then, you know, it might be done faster. Stand here and listen to the microwave for 30 seconds. I'm just going to move things out of the way. That way you don't have to look at my dirty dishes. Six seconds. All right. So you want to look at the cake. And it should, it's probably going to need a little bit more than this. So, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like now. For those of you that that bake on a regular basis, you will be able to look and see that it's not totally done. You can see that it's like springy in some parts, but still kind of wet in the others, just like if you cook in a big pan. So then at this point, you just want to do 10-second increments and then check on it. And it should only take at most another 30 seconds. It is totally done when it springs back to your touch and it's just starting to pull away from the sides of the cake. So I'm going to do another. Going to do another few seconds and see if that will get us done. Hot. Okay. And it's hot. Yep, so you can see if that it's kind of just starting to pull away from the sides, just like a cake in a pan does. And then it is like, if I touch it, it does spring back, just like a cake in a pan would. So it should be done. It is, I can tell you from experience though, that it is molten hot. So now is a good time, if depending on what kind of cake you make, if you want to put whipped cream on it, if you want to put ice cream on it. But I'm gonna tease you a little here. So, and you can see it's just looks like a cake. It's not gonna be super pretty since it's inside a mug. And it's, like I said, it's gonna be molten hot. Oh, it's hot, but it's cooked. And it really comes out with that kind of spongy texture like that a cake has. So it's, I mean, who knew? Does anybody else ever done mugs, cake mugs before? No,
I did once.
you did once?
Yeah, because somebody in the group was a diabetic. And so his went into a cup and the rest got a piece of cake.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never had either prior. I had never made them. Like I said, we bought the ones that were in the store and I didn't like them. I was surprised at how well that this comes out and how it really does have the texture of cake. I thought maybe the microwave would give it a different texture, but it doesn't. So I'll eat that later. We still got 13 minutes on the brownies, which will be just enough time for us, I think, to get the cookie batter put together to do a small batch of chocolate chip cookies. So any questions so far? Okay, let me swap out the recipe here and get the next one. All right. You have to use power tools for this one. Out. So I already have a baking sheet that I lined with parchment sitting over off to the side for when the cookie dough is ready. So, and proportionately, this is just a smaller batch of cookies. You know, sometimes it's easy to look at a recipe and have it, you know, but sometimes it's not. And this is nice because it only makes a dozen cookies, which is perfect. Excuse me, if you want to have cookies for a couple of days and then be done with it, or if you're having 2 people over and don't want 4 dozen cookies, like some of the recipes make. Excuse me while I take a drink. So, okay. So it's gonna look a lot like your regular chocolate chip cookie recipe. So we're gonna mix together the flour, all the dry ingredients in here. So we're gonna start with the flour. And it's a 1/2 cup of flour with 2 tablespoons. And I've just been using all-purpose flour. 1/2 cup of flour. If you prefer wheat flour or you want to do a mix to try to make it slightly healthier, you can do that too. And then a little bit of salt. This is gonna call for 1/8 teaspoon of salt. So just a tiny little doodad of salt. And then baking soda and baking powder. Baking soda. I lost my place. 1/4 teaspoon baking soda. Does anyone have a way from keeping their baking soda forming into little crystals? If you do, please share. No, am I the only one that has that problem? And then we're gonna do 1/4 of a teaspoon of baking powder. We're just gonna mix this. And then of course, we gotta have the butter, and it's 6 tablespoons of butter that has been softened. And this has been sitting out since about 5 o'clock. So it should be good and soft now. All right. So we're gonna beat this a little bit, so excuse the noise. Get that fluffy. Now we're gonna add the sugar. So this calls for brown sugar and white sugar. White sugar is just 3 tablespoons. Drop it right in. The brown sugar is 1/4 of a cup. Packed down.
When I have my brown sugar and it starts to get clumpy and stuff, I usually put a slice of bread in, and it will keep it from clumping.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. All right, more noise. I'm gonna mix this all together. You just want to incorporate it, and it should be sort of a pale brown. And then this actually requires just an egg yolk. So I've already separated my egg white. And then vanilla, because you need vanilla for the chocolate chip cookies. It's not. And then handy dandy spatula from behind here. And then we're gonna beat this together, and then I'm gonna start adding the dry ingredients. Last of the dry ingredients. All right. So we are all incorporated here. I'm gonna get this off the beaters. All right. Now, of course, it's not chocolate chip cookies without chocolate chips. And so this is just 1/3 of a cup. These are semi-sweet chocolate chips. These are regular size. You could use mini, you could use milk chocolate, whatever your preference is. You could use butterscotch. You could just use more of the M&Ms that you bought when you were making the brownies. All right. And then we're gonna scoop the dough into 12 balls onto a baking sheet. I like to use an ice cream, one of those little small ice cream scoops. For me, that works better, but if you're good at freehanding it, great. I'm gonna grab the pan. So, and I lined this with parchment, but it is not greased. Do you guys bake with parchment too? Do you use parchment? I know
Yes.
some people love it and some people don't.
Especially with my cookies.
Yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna see, so I'm just using the little baby ice, almost like melon baller size. Just get them all on here. See, and by the time you heat up the oven, you could have the dough mixed, and then they're just 10 minutes or so in the oven, and you have warm, hot chocolate chip cookies. Who could beat that? And I have to say, I actually, I guess because I'm scooping them a little small, I have a little bit of dough left over. That's all right. I'll bake that off later after class. My coworkers were begging for me to bring samples for them tomorrow. So we got 4 minutes left on the brownies. So before I can put the cookies in the oven. So before I forget, if you are interested in getting other recipes for small batch baking, you can come to the library. We've got about 3 books specifically. And so, and some of the books, their idea of small batch baking is still 2 dozen as opposed to like 4 dozen. But they have everything from pies that serve only 2 to 3 people to bars to bread. One of the cookbooks had bread. So if you like sweet bread or even savory bread, it was a way to only have to make, you know, either 1 loaf or a small, like a half a loaf. So they're worth checking out. There's definitely some good recipes, things I'd never thought that you could have, like a pie. I was like, how do you have, you know, like how do you have a recipe for a pie? But they did a good job of it. So, all right, I'm actually gonna check the brownies because it's a little under 2 minutes. Ow, and it's hot. Okay. Definitely still need to finish cooking. So, any questions? While you stare at
Back
for
to
2
the
minutes. What, Dorothy?
the parchment paper. What
Yeah.
is that supposed to do? Because I also have never used that.
It helps. So,
What
well,
does
it
it do
protects your
to-
pan for one thing, but it helps make the items brown more evenly on the pan and to not stick to your pan. So,
Okay.
yeah, I find so I've had ovens that were a little inconsistent in the temperature, and I found the parchment paper really helped to kind of help even out the baking so that the food didn't get super hot right up against the metal. So I find they extend the life of my pans because I don't get all that grease and butter and stuff on the pan itself. So, but some people hate using parchment paper and some people love it. So. But you can't bake, you can't use like wax paper on like cookies or anything like that. You can do wax paper inside a cake pan, but you couldn't do it on like a cookie sheet. So, okay. I am going to do this. Switch back to the other camera and get the brownies out. Come, and there we go. All right. So here are the brownies. So I'm just gonna, the good old toothpick trick. Do y'all know that trick? So
Mhm.
again, it should come out fairly clean. It's fairly clean. You can see the brownies have kind of pulled away. They kind of jump back. So we have these beautiful brownies. So then I'm gonna stick the cookies in the oven. And they need only about 8 to 10 minutes. Let me set my timer here. Just until the edges start to brown. So for the brownies, you just want to, we're just gonna let it sit in the pan for about a minute or so, and then we should be able to just pull it right out with the parchment overhang, which makes it really easy for getting it out of the pan. Have any of you tried any other like small batch recipes that you've liked or not liked?
Mm.
No? This is your first foray. I made my mom my taste tester. I came home one night and I said, I have to lead this class. And I think I did 9 recipes in 3 days. And she would, every time she would come home from work, I'd be like, try this, vote, tell me which ones to make. Some of them were easy. Some of them it was like, yeah, I'm not gonna ever make that again. So, but I wanted to try to get a variety, and not all chocolate. I mean, I'm partial to chocolate, Leah. I know you are too.
Mhm.
But I do realize there are other things besides chocolate. So I was trying to get something else in there. So we should be able to just pull, see, just pulls right out. And I can just move the pan. And so now you can see that's still hot. But you can see you can cut it in half and you have 2 very large brownies, but they're not very thick. I don't know if you can see, they're pretty thin on the sides. Or you can cut it into 3s if you've just got 2 people coming over, or you want to ration it for 3 days worth. So
One day.
one day, yeah. Oh yeah. Cut it in 3 pieces so you don't feel so bad, right? One in the morning,
Yeah.
one in the afternoon, one in the evening. Yeah, never done that before. But yeah, but like I said, this is where you can really customize it. So if you don't want to do M&Ms, if you want to do, my mom really wanted me to do coconuts, walnuts. If you like walnuts in your brownies, many of us do. You could do that. If you like pecans, if you, I thought about doing those toffee bits. Like you can buy in the baking aisle. I thought that would be good too.
Mhm.
So you could really do kind of customize it to whatever your taste is, or if you're baking for someone, whatever their taste is. So it's kind of nice, you know, you can make a mug cake for yourself. You could make brownies if you've got company coming over, and then a few little cookies. Although there's nothing, it's hard to resist fresh baked chocolate chip cookies. And I'm afraid that 12 might also disappear very rapidly. All right. Any other questions?
I don't have a question, but you're sure doing a good job of making me hungry.
Thank you. I feel sort of weird being like the headless. But it's like you can either see what, Dorothy?
I think you should have a drone and deliver it.
I know. Yeah, unfortunately we're not one of those fancy cooking shows that has like a photographer off to the side. So you can either see my face or you can see what I'm doing. That's about your only 2 options. But we got this fancy camera, which at least allows you to, I feel like Vanna White. Um,
What kind of a microwave do you have? I noticed it was very narrow.
It is. We have a very small one. We have a little Whirlpool. When we moved into this house, there was no microwave. And we had one on the counter and decided it was taking up too much space. We wanted to put a microwave over the range, which is pretty standard nowadays. But our range is, because of the cupboards, we really couldn't do a full size range. So we found this one that is as wide as the oven, but it's only about 8 inch. It's only maybe 10 inches tall. So it is narrow, but for us, we use it to reheat food, to maybe heat a cup of milk, make a mug cake. And so I didn't need it to be too big. It just had to be big enough to fit a dinner plate in it, like width-wise, depth-wise. So
That's about all you need it for. It's a narrow one.
yes, and for us, it saved on because it was not as tall. If we got a standard size range, the microwave, a standard size microwave, it was gonna only give us like 8 inches from the top of the oven to the bottom of the microwave. And so it was way too close. So yeah, we Lowe's sold it, but we had to like order it online through them to get them to bring it in. It's not something they carried in their stores. So, but if you need a smaller microwave, they are out there. So, all
I
right.
think they're way too big. If you live alone, I never have any large object go in there.
Yes. And it was great because I had a small microwave, but it's still, when you don't have a lot of counter space, a small microwave still takes up a lot of counter space. So this was a way for us to kind of free up some space and be able to put other things where we needed it to be. So I'm going to move the mixing bowl and out of the way because we got just about 3 minutes on the cookies. I want to be able to have room to show you.
Next time you get a camera with smell-o-vision.
Wouldn't that be nice? I wish you could smell it because the brownies sure smell good. I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure my mom will be happy to come home tonight and have brownies. I don't think she will be sad about that.
When did she move in with you, Dawn? I didn't know that.
March of last year.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it's been almost a year and a half. Yeah, we started in my apartment, my little 2-bedroom apartment, and knew that was not going to last in my 900 square foot apartment. So the minute she moved here, we started looking for a house to buy together. So yeah. She moved here after my dad died, so she couldn't afford to stay living by herself. So she came here to be with me, the only child.
Nice for both of you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, they're not done yet. They're a pale color. So, yeah. Yes, it's worked out well. She does not cook or bake. So she likes the fact that I do. It works out well. And it's so much nicer to have someone to cook or bake for. I don't mind baking for myself, and I cooked for myself all the time, living alone, but it sure is nice to have it to share with someone.
And it's nice to have some company to talk to over the table.
Yes, that is very true.
That's when I do a puzzle.
I like to read while I eat. Obviously not dinner if my mom's here, but at breakfast, mom's not usually up yet when I'm up in the morning getting ready for work. So I like to read, but a puzzle would be a good way to do it too.
Like Sudoku, don't take up much room.
Nice. All right, I'm gonna move the brownie out of the way. We're just about. Actually, they're a little blonde. They're a little light, so we'll just give them another few seconds.
Now, do they come out soft or crisp?
They are a little of both because I use that smaller scoop. They kind of get a little bit crispy on the bottom, and then they can be a little bit soft. So they kind of combo both. So depending on what size scoop you use. If you like them softer, use like a bigger scoop or a bigger tablespoon, and you'll get them a little softer.
I like chocolate chip cookies anyway I can get them, but I had a fussy brother that likes them soft.
I do prefer them a little on the softer side. I know everyone's got their preference. Pull these out. So I need, so you can see it. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but you can see that they're definitely getting brown around the edges. So, and I find, and maybe this is me, but I find with, especially with chocolate chip cookies, that if you wait until they're the color you want them, then they're overdone. I find when they get brown, it's to pull them out and they seem, they bake a little bit longer. So now you've just got a dozen cookies ready to sit down and watch your Wheel of Fortune or to invite someone over and share. And you don't have 2 dozen, you don't have to make 4 dozen, although like Dorothy pointed out, cookies are something that does freeze well. So.
Baked or unbaked?
What?
Baked or unbaked?
Yes, yeah, you can freeze them either way. So there you go. We've made 3 recipes in the last hour. We made the brownies and we made the snickerdoodle mud cake, and now we made the chocolate chip cookies. And I hope the recipes will serve you well. And again, we've got about 3 books on small batch baking if you want to try other things. And yeah. Any final questions or comments before I set you free to go do your own baking?
When are you going to have your next talk?
I am not sure. This one was delegated to me, so who knows? Shirley may delegate another one. It has been a while because I did the air fryer ones earlier.
Well, you did an excellent job, Dawn. Thank you.
Do you have a suggestion, Dorothy, on what you want the topic to be?
Anything.
Anything?
Cooking is always good. Cooking is always good.
So
gotta eat.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you all joining me tonight. If, like I said in the email, there was a kit to go with this class that had most of the ingredients for the brownies. If you have not picked that up, they're still waiting. You can still pick it up even after the class. And then it's just missing, it's pretty much got most of the dry ingredients. It's just missing like the butter and the vanilla and the egg that you would have to add to the kit. But otherwise it's got all the ingredients, including the M&Ms to make the brownies. So if you haven't picked that up, go ahead and do so and get baking. So, all right. Well, on that note, thank you again for attending and have a good evening. I'm going to stop the recording now. Have a good night, everybody.
Night, night.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Dolores.
Thanks, Don.